On February 23, 2022, my husband wore a new fashionable coat and attended an investment seminar. I bought a bottle of a good French champagne to celebrate the anniversary of our first family video production business next month in March. But that champagne has been waiting for us in our kitchen in Vyshgorod, small picturesque town near Kiev, for more than 2 years now. For hundreds of years, our nation's survival next to Russia, Ukrainians got used to live in stress and learn to rejoice despite of difficulties. During the year before the full-scale invasion, I founded our video production business and gave birth to our third child when Russians had surrounded our country almost from all sides. My friends studied, worked, traveled, created families and innovations. We couldn't stop our lives because of insane ambitions of the ugly dictator. But even with the experience that Ukrainians had with Russia for centuries, it was still impossible for us to believe in the full-scale war in the middle of Europe in the 21st century. Even when it was in the air, day after day. So when I, a happy but tired mother of 2-month-old baby, suddenly heard the sounds of explosions early in the morning on February 24, I was in shock. Sounds were dull and heavy like slabs that fell from a great height and nailed our lives to the ground. I looked out of the window and saw big clouds of orange smoke over Kiev. On YouTube, we watched Putin's speech about starting the special operation in Ukraine. Several months before this morning, we, as all Ukrainians, were trying to prepare as much as we could. We bought diapers and medicine, small gas cylinder, many batteries, flashlights, food, coffee, bottle of alcohol, sweets. We taped windows in case of explosions. We gathered with children evacuation backpacks many times, not sure what to put into them. My husband has watched many videos about how to behave during street fighting. We believed that our moral and physical preparation would be enough, and in 2 or 3 weeks, Ukrainian army would take over everything. But the reality turned out to be much worse than our expectations. After the first explosions, we saw fighter jets and helicopters right before our windows. There was a military base and hydroelectric station in our city, so they became targets for Russians immediately. We decided to hide the children, and there were no bomb shelters at our city at all at that time. So we spent the first 10 days of the war in the basement of a big Protestant church. More than 150 people slept here together every night on the mobile tourist clamshells. We brought much of our prepared food to the church, and many other people did the same because all supermarkets were closed, and we understood it would be tough to survive alone. Time froze, and we lived every second on phones, watching in horror as our country drowned in war. Some families left the basement daily. They tried to drive further from occupied Kiev region. And every day we read in the news about how Russians shot entire columns of civilian cars with families who were trying to escape. One night, my husband, patrolling around church building, heard gunfire in the city, and we made a tough decision to evacuate. On March 6, early in the morning, we packed diapers for the baby, food for the children, and our professional video equipment into 3 backpacks. We decided to go to the Western Ukraine for 1 month, believing that the war would end soon. We tried to board the evacuation train in Kiev for more than 10 hours that day. Hundreds of people did the same simultaneously. Children were handed over the heads in the crowd into the train. It seems like sirens of air attacks would never stop. It was almost impossible to get inside, but finally we did. There were 12 of us in the compartment designed for 4 people. The train came to Lviv. At that time, 1.5 million people came here, and there was no accommodation left for rent. We stayed in Lviv for 1 day and had no idea what to do next. Suddenly, my Ukrainian friends, Kateryna and Olena, called me from Sweden and told me they found accommodation for my family here. I remember that I was like in fog. I called my mom. Zaporizhia, where she lived, was already being bombed. I said I didn't want to leave Ukraine without her. She said she would manage, and I had to save the children. I had so strange feeling, getting permission from my mom to flee. Next day, we stood with the children and hundreds of other people shoulder to shoulder for many hours, waiting for an evacuation train from Lviv to Poland. There was no air to breathe due to the number of people in the beautiful ancient Lviv railway station. We finally got into the train, left Lviv, and stood more than 15 hours in a cold field near Przemysl, in this old train with wooden seats, without toilet, because Poland couldn't so quickly accept so many refugees at the border. My children slept on the floor because there were no seats for them. I was worried the stress would dry up my breast milk, but it was still there, and baby just ate and slept all these crazy days. But that night in that field, in this train, he started to cry, and I couldn't calm him down. And I still remember the small valeriana pill handed to me by a young girl who was traveling alone. Finally, after 3 days leaving Vyshgorod, we entered Poland. The station in Przemysl was chaotic. People slept everywhere on the floor. We traveled 1,000 kilometers by 3 trains through Poland on full adrenaline that day. Our Swedish colleagues, Ulla and Lasse, bought us tickets for a ferry to Sweden, paid for a cozy hotel and a great dinner in Gdańsk. We felt ourselves like we were in a surreal movie. It seems like tomorrow we would wake up in our beds and realize that it was just a weird collective dream. But tomorrow we woke up in beautiful sunny Gdańsk. A massive ferry to Sweden was waiting for us, and the horror of the war in Ukraine still hasn't ended. We have been living in Sweden for more than 2 years now. Private medical company Gordon from Uppsala allowed us to stay in one of its accommodations till now. It is better to do something instead of nothing. Sarah, the director of Gordon, often told me bringing my children food, clothes, bicycles. She passed away last winter, and it was our first very personal loss in Sweden. Jonas, a great photographer from Stockholm, gave us a big credit of trust and helped us to earn our first money in Sweden. And the first filming of my husband with him was for the royal family in Stockholm. My children got a lot of help from a very friendly teachers of Montessori Glunten School in Uppsala, and now they are already fluent in Swedish. and the first words of my baby were also po svenska. My family received so much support, not from the state, but from many empathetic people we met here. And it was so crucial for me not just to take this help, but to give something back. Since our arrival, I have heard many incredible, fantastic stories of Swedish support for Ukraine. My husband and I, we created YouTube project Voice for Ukraine and filmed more than 20 interviews with Swedish people who supported Ukraine and Ukrainians in word and deed. Some people in Sweden tell me that being a thankful refugee is a moveton. They say refugees have to be more critical. They have to fight for their rights, and they don't need to be such thankful all the time, because it seems insincere. But when some barbarian strangers come to your home, trying to kill you and your beloved, and then other people who have never before heard about Ukraine open their houses and share their food with your children, you feel nothing but immersive gratitude. Being grateful gives me so much energy and strength. It helps me see how many amazing people there are in this world still, despite of all its cruelty and madness. Our video project helped me show my Ukrainian friends that Ukraine is not alone in this war, and also show Swedes themselves how beautiful you are in your support. Meeting fantastic military men, musicians, journalists, volunteers, artists, ordinary Swedish citizens who supporting Ukraine and Ukrainians in different ways somehow helped me to find myself again, my personality, my professional agency, my hope for the future. This war will last a long time, and my refugee status also. I already know that for sure. But what else do I already know with all my heart? It is always better to do something instead of nothing. Your help can be small or huge. It can be 1 million Swedish crowns, a ferry ticket, a room, a valeriana pill. It also can be your unique, precious life dedicated to those in need. Please, don't stop supporting Ukraine. We already know it would be tough to survive alone. And let our gratitude flow. It saves our souls from bitterness and hate. And I promise you, when the war ends, I will drink that champagne in my kitchen in Vyshgorod for all of you Swedish amazing people who shared my refugee journey with incredible empathy. Thank you.